Hello, I'm Jerry Wagner, and I'm the author of an Enneagram assessment, the Wagner Enneagram Personality Style Scales. Well, that's very original. Did you name anything else after yourself? No, that's it. Well, tell us a little bit about it then. Well, it started it started back at the end of the 1970s. I was doing research on my dissertation, and the dissertation was about the Enneagram. And so I compared the Enneagram with the Myers-Briggs and another system of personality styles, Theodore Milan's inventory. But I needed a test to figure out, well, what Enneagram type are the different participants. So my original test was sentences. And something like, oh, I really like to perform before an audience of about 10,000 people. Or I'd rather eat dirt than talk in front of 10 people. Things like that. They weren't really the sentences, but you get the idea. Um, the test was okay. It was good enough to get me out of graduate school, for which I am eternally grateful. But I thought, it could be better. I think I can make a better test. So I came up with some other sentence versions of a test. And then I hit on the idea of using words and phrases. So it'd be more like a projective test, like the Rorschach. What does this ink blot remind you of? What might this be? So here's a word, here's a phrase. Does it kind of fit you or not? And I gave a range of possibilities, a Likert scale. So it went all the way from, this is never like me. Are you kidding me? This is always like me. And then everything in between. Well, it's seldom like me. Sometimes it's like me. It's often like me. So you get a range of options. There are 200 items altogether, and half of them measure what I think are kind of the positive, resourceful features, characteristics of each Enneagram style, and half of them measure the less resourceful. I originally called it a positive and negative, but I thought, well, that sounds kind of negative. How about resourceful and non-resourceful? And then, well, that's not so good either, because, even neurotic behavior is somewhat resourceful. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. So now I call those two characteristics above the line, below the line, high side, low side of the Enneagram styles, resourceful and less resourceful. Less resourceful meaning there's some collateral damage when you act this way or think this way. It might be a little hurtful to you, might be a little hurtful to others, whereas the resourceful characteristics are kind of beneficial for all concerned. Um, just a quick information about the statistics of the Enneagram, blessedly quick. You need reliability and validity for any kind of test. So the reliability is a kind of a question of do the items that go with the scale actually go with that scale? So there's inter-item reliability or interconsistency, and there are statistical formulas for calculating that. So you want the items that are supposed to go with one type to actually go with the other items that are supposed to go with the one type. So I tried that out with many versions, and if the word didn't fit, if it didn't correlate with the other words, I'd either throw it out or maybe put it even with another style because it correlated better with them. So then I came up with this inner item consistency. If it's, for my items, it went from about 0.7 to 0.9. Well, not perfect. That'd be one. I don't think any test ever gets there, but it's good enough to get it published. The other aspect of reliability is test and retest. So if I take this test today, will I come out basically the same next week? And so I did some testing on that, and it was pretty decent. But you don't want it to be perfect. You don't want it to be perfectly rigid because, maybe in between taking the test the first time and the second time, you've had a year or two of therapy, or you've gone to some Enneagram workshops. So maybe your responses would be a little different. You know yourself better. You are hopefully a little healthier than when you started. So there might be, a little leeway to improve yourself. So it's the difference between a state and trait. So state is kind of depending on circumstances. It's a bad hair day, so I'm going to kind of look non-resourceful. Or a trait, it's an enduring characteristic. And the Enneagram, I think, measures traits, those kind of lasting characteristics of each style. All right. So you want to, if you're going to hit a target, that's validity, predictive validity. So, does the highest score on your Enneagram inventory match who you really are, what Enneagram type you are? And so you say, well, I don't know, how do you know what type you are? Well, it could depend on self-report, know thyself. So that's going to depend on how well you know yourself. It might be also, well, someone who knows you really well, like your probation officer. What type would they say you are? But again, they are basing that on what external characteristics, so the way you present yourself. They may not know what's going on inside. So that problems with that. Or you could say, well, how about we get an Enneagram expert? They'll interview you and type you and see what they come up with. But even there, so that's inter-rater reliability, and sometimes that's not much better than a test. The gold standard would be, who do you think you are? Who do somebody who know you well think you are? Who does an expert think you are? What does a test think you are? If all those go together, you might be that style. Anyway, I kind of went with people who, what did they assess themselves to be? And they were fairly knowledgeable about themselves, so I went with that. And so the validity statistic was about 8 out of 10 times the highest score on my Enneagram inventory predicted what type you thought you were. If you take the top 2 or 3, then it was right about 9 out of 10 times. And that's what other folks who have other Enneagram inventories are coming up with. It might not be the very highest score, but the top 3, likely one of those is going to be where you land, your kind of core style. Now, there's a feature on my inventory now where if you don't like your top score, you say, oh, I don't like the way that looks, then you can click on your second highest score. It gives you a whole different printout profile. If you say, well, maybe not, then you can click on the third highest score. And again, you get a whole different profile. And then you'll either be, much more assured which type is yours, or you'll be 3 times as confused. But anyway, that possibility is there. The other thing is a standardized sample. So my original test that was published was based on a little over 1,100 subjects. They were fairly representative. They're from different countries, different ages range, 18 to 83, men and women. Recently, I've done a analysis of over 170,000 subjects, and it turns out that the original scoring system still works. It still holds up. And again, it's like the top 3 are good predictors of what Enneagram style you are. So you say, well, it would really be nice if it was the top 1, but at least, we got you down to 3 instead of 9. So, a little less agonizing over your particular style. The other thing is these days, when I learned the Enneagram, we were kind of concerned about, well, what type are you? Figure that out. Still important. But there's also more focus on a whole range. Like you've got the potential of all 9 characteristics in you. So you have in the profile, you got from highest to lowest. So take all of those into account. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you how to interpret the WEPS, and we'll see how you can take in that whole range of responses. I discovered I didn't need separate male and female scoring systems. Sometimes you need that. Um, so you can just use one scoring system to determine the person's styles. I used the percentile scores, not raw scores. I think they're a little bit more useful and accurate. Also spreads the scores out a little bit more. So it compares you with that standardized sample. Well, how do I stack up compared to everybody else? Anyway, so um, it's translated now. It's English and Spanish, German, Danish, working on Chinese. So it's in many languages. I should make a comment that when you talk about the standardized sample, you're asking, well, is this test representative of the whole world population? Well, there weren't any Laplanders in the original sample, so it's not totally representative. It's close. But if you're going to use the test, like in France or in Serbia or wherever, you might need to recalibrate the statistics based on that particular representative sample. So, buyer beware. The representative sample is pretty good, uh, but I didn't sample the entire world population. Okay, now let me show you. So let me show you some of the information that the WEPS, the Wagner Enneagram Personality Style Scales, gives you. So here is a sample printout, and in the beginning, I give a brief description of the 9 styles. Then I give you your results. And then you get a description of what your core style or what your kind of organizing style might be for the Enneagram, what your wing style, the neighbor, the type on either side, which one do you tend to lean towards? Also, what you find easy to do in your style, what you might find difficult to do, and how you might defend yourself from things that you find kind of threatening or hurtful. And also parts of yourself that you don't like, how you kind of defend yourself against them. Also, how you may have learned this style, where did it come from, and what happens to you when you're under stress, what happens when you're more relaxed, and what you can do when you are in balance. And again, the new feature of the test is that you can now click on what your second and third highest scores are and get a whole different configuration. So here's a sample. And I'll just go through this to see, well, how might you interpret this? And then I'll show you also on the new printout, there's a whole section on how to interpret the WEPS. So I would look for, and so would you, I suspect, well, which type comes highest? So hopefully you can see my little arrow moving here. So here, this person, I have no idea who this is, male, female, or, how old they are. But the highest score is a 2. Total score, second highest percentile score, looks like it's a 4. And then 7. Okay, so 2, 4, 7. Also, let me go all the way down to the end here. You can see another graph that shows you how you do with the styles that kind of use their heart center, 2, 3, and 4, styles that use their head center, 5, 6, and 7, and styles that use their body center, 8, 9, and 1. And so this person, well, looks like 2 for the heart and a 7 for the head and a 1 for the gut center. So if you like tri-types, this may or may not indicate, this is a 2, 7, 1. But I would take that with a little grain of salt. May or may not be accurate. Okay, so what would you look at? You notice that this is green. So green means go. So green means you identify more with the resourceful part of that style rather than the less resourceful. If your less resourceful score was higher, that would be red. And here, this person, as a 2, tends to identify with the 1. You can kind of see that green line there, more than the 3, which would be the other wing. So a total score for 1 is 48, almost 49. For the 3, it's 38. So at least according to the test and the way this person answered it, they tend to lean more towards the 1 than the 3. And they go to the positive side of the 1, resourceful rather than less resourceful. So you still get green. One of the conventions of the system is the way these lines are connected. So for the 2, according to the system, when they're in a relaxed, balanced place and they're going for kind of aspects of themselves that balance their own style, that would be the 4. And again, that's a green line. So this person identifies more with the positive, higher aspects of the 4 rather than the less resourceful, the more automatic patterned responses. And also the Enneagram says, well, what do you like when you're under stress? And sometimes stress brings out the best in people. Sometimes it brings out the worst, kind of a backup strategy. And so the 2 is connected to the 8. And again, this person tends to identify more with the positive rather than the negative features of the 8. So we get a green line. So you're going to get all that kind of information. All right. And so I would look at, well, in general, does this person tend to be more integrated? Like their resourceful scores are higher than the less resourceful. I will say that a lot of times, so here's the 3, the less resourceful, a little higher than the resourceful. With 3s, especially in American culture, it's good to be it's good to be working hard. It's good to be goal oriented. It's good to be task focused. But if you overdo it, might not be so good. So that's the other way of interpreting this test. Well, people say, well, what do you mean less resourceful? That sounds bad. Should I have myself committed or, take some medicine? Well, no. What it might mean is you're just overdoing the gifts of your style. So I spell that out a little bit on how to interpret the WEPSS. If you take the 1, yeah, you want to do things well. You want to do things as fine as you can, perfect as you can, but you can become a perfectionist if you overdo it. Like a 2, it's good to be helpful, but if you overdo it, your worth depends on being helpful, then you might get codependent. 3, you like to accomplish things, get things done. Take pride in that. Overdo it, you're a workaholic. For 4s, they remind us, say, you're talking about types here, but we're really all unique. There isn't anybody else like us. Yeah, very true. And so the 4s value and emphasize individuality, uniqueness. If you overdo it, you have to be special to be somebody. You might price yourself out of existence. Well, now nobody's going to understand you because nobody's like you. 5s value knowing, wise person. That's good. But if you overdo it, you get the intellectual, the head on 2 feet. 6s like to be loyal, faithful. They like being in the safety in numbers. Birds of a feather flock together. You exaggerate loyalty, and you might get the fanatic. Oh, by God, better believe what I believe, or I have to convert you, or well, maybe kill you. I don't know. 7s, value hope, imagination, creativity, options, adventure. If you overdo that, you might get the Pollyannish person. Everything is coming up roses. Well, not always. 8 values strength, power, justice. If you push it too far, you get the over justice maker. They determine what's right, what's the law, or what's just, what isn't. 9 is peaceful, calm, like to see the unity and everything. If you push that too far, you get complacency, overly settled. Peace at any cost, go along to get along. So you take the good thing, resourceful, overdo it, and you get the less resourceful, or it becomes more of a knee-jerk reaction rather than kind of a reflective response. Okay, resourceful, less resourceful. Now, you could say, well, this person has almost all resourceful leanings. So you could say, wow, pretty well-balanced person. That's very good. Although if you were a little bit more jaded, you might say, well, this person realizes that this is a test they're taking for a job and they're going to look good. So you might be faking it. That's possible, trying to look good. Or you might just have a higher opinion of yourself than other people might. Might think you're better than you really are. So you have to kind of ask the person to reflect on that. Well, how come all these scores are higher? Might be a very healthy person, might be someone who's fudging a little bit. Same thing with the less resourceful. If all your scores are less resourceful, well, it might mean that you are really having a bad hair day, or you are really, hurting. Or it might mean that you might be a 1. You might have just a lot of self-critical thoughts about yourself, and so you're painting yourself in kind of a bad light. Well, I could be better. That's possible. Or it might be it's a cry for help. I'm really in bad straits here. Help me out. So there's a lot of interpretations as to why less resourceful might be higher than the resourceful. Now, here's another thing. Please, no, don't give us another thing. Yes, I will. When you take this test, the mindset that you are asked to have is, how are you over long periods of your life? So you might be, more balanced and a little bit more easygoing now than you were when you were younger. But probably when you're in your late teens, early adulthoods, somewhere in there, you're really getting into your style. So if you think about how you were then, what your major style or core style is might be a little bit more obvious. So, around that time, emerging adulthood, late adolescence, you've learned, some of these patterns, and you're practicing them, you're overdoing them. Now, I was going to say I inflicted my test. I offered my test to college students who were taking my course in theories of personality and theories of learning. They really liked the Enneagram, not surprisingly. But also, I noticed that often their results tended to be lean towards the less resourceful side, much more than older adults who took the WEPSS, which somewhat confirms my hunch that when you are at that early stage of your life, you're overdoing a good thing. And so their scores tended to lean more towards the less resourceful. Eventually, as we get older, we grow out of it. As you are a 1, you might say, okay, I'll do this tomorrow. I want to have a little fun today. Or if you're a 2, you can say, you know what, you can probably help yourself. You don't need me. If you're a 3, yeah, my worth doesn't depend on just doing things. So you kind of back off a little bit. And then your resourceful scores might go up as you get a little bit more balanced or carefree or laid back as you get older. Oh, the hell with it. Okay. Now, I talked about the range. So we looked at the highest scores, the 2 and the 4 and the 7. So so you we speculate a little bit. Okay, so here's someone who likes to help people, and here's someone of four. Well, they might be kind of creative, kind of in touch with their feelings, other people's feelings, the two and the four. Seven, okay, they seem to be kind of a hopeful person, imaginative, creative. Kind of an interesting combination. Okay. So then, well, what are the low scores? Well, five is practically off the charts low, 0.6. So five is the thinking person, also the person that moves away from. So this person might be more moving towards rather than away from using Karen Horney's system. Six is kind of low. Maybe not so fearful, maybe not so self-doubting, maybe a little bit more confident. Sevens tend to be, well, let's try this out. I can do it. And also the A9 is kind of low. So relaxed, easygoing, do it tomorrow. So this is more, it seems like someone who's kind of, okay, I see some needs and I want to see what I can do to help somebody. I see where the group is, and maybe I can find ways of expressing that spirit of the group. Maybe you might ask this person, do you know where the library is? Maybe so. Being low on the five might just mean they're not detached. They're not trying to stay hidden. Or it might mean that they're more interested in practical applications of knowledge rather than, going in a library stack and never to be seen again. The six, are they loyal, faithful? Maybe so. Maybe no. Maybe they need to beef that up a little bit. Although if you're a two, you probably are pretty loyal. Maybe just not as fearful. Maybe not that self-doubting. But you might want to look at, well, what are the qualities, the good resources that these styles have that I might want to, beef up a little bit in me or work on that a little bit. Maybe I need a little leisure time for that nine, a little rest. So just some ideas about how you might go about interpreting these different scores that you have. All right. So just a quick review of some of the information the WEPSS will give you. Here is a couple of pages on how to interpret the results, and you'll get these when you get your printout. So it suggests, okay, what's your highest score? And how come those scores are high? Sometimes you might have, 5 or 6 scores in the 90 percentile. And you say, what's going on here? Remember asking somebody, well, how come those scores are so high? And he said, oh, when I took the test, I was just feeling passionate about everything. So the scores are really high, or they might be really low. Maybe you don't know yourself. Maybe you want to hide out. So I don't want to stand out in anything. Besides, it's none of your business. Maybe you're right in the middle, which still kind of doesn't tell you a whole lot. It's nice to have, just a little bit of spread in your scores. So it might be that the test taking mindset you have when you take the test. I want to stand out in everything. I want to hide out in everything. I want to be about, neutral in everything. So it depends. So again, as I did, look at the resourceful and less resourceful. Where do you stand there? Which wing? Which way do you lean, and how you get a little description how that nuances your Enneagram expression, your style. What the resourceful scores mean in Maslow's system. He talks about being values, good qualities in you that just want to express themselves. I remember a movie about a jazz musician who said, the music is in me and it just needs to come out. It just wants to come out. So if you're a one, you just want to make things well. If you're a two, you just want to help people. If you're a three, you just want to accomplish things, get things done. If you're a four, you just want to express yourself. So all the way around. The less resourceful, again, is a kind of more defensive, protective. Maslow talks about deficiency motives. Rather than have an abundance in us that wants to overflow, we feel that there's an emptiness, a lack. And so we need something from the outside to fill us up. Like if I do what I'm told as a 6, then I'll be approved of. If I'm always up, it's a 7, I'll be liked. If I'm tough, nobody's going to bother me. If I'm an 8, if I'm accommodating as a 9, I'll be okay. So kind of a defensive way of being in the world, ways to keep us from being hurt, maybe the way we were when we were little. Okay, I talk about that shift from resourceful to less resourceful, again, exaggerating the good things. What do the high scores and low scores mean? So you can think about, we've got these 9 players on our outer team, or 9 different types that are really helpful to have on your team. And we've got 9 inner players. And so each of these styles, the potential is in us. It's already there. And so we tend to, I would think, use the players that we're most familiar with. So probably our highest scores. We put them in the game more often. But some of those players that we don't identify with so much might really be very useful in the game of life. So think about, okay, how can I actualize some of those qualities that are in me? Okay. So I use 3 more metaphors, and then that'll do it. Psychologically speaking, we've got all these different strategies for surviving. There's even the book Nine Sapiens that says evolutionary wise, Mother Nature has perhaps evolved these 9 ways of being in the world because they all have something to contribute to the group, or they certainly contribute to 9 different ways for us to survive. Different ways of looking at the world, feeling about the world, responding to it, the world. And they're all good. We need them all. Business point of view, you might say, well, you've got the chief executive officer or the chief operating officer. That's your core style. But then you got a board of directors. You've got 8 other styles that can help you out. From a spiritual point of view, perhaps we manifest divinity in 9 different ways. They're all fine. They're all different aspects of God, different qualities. And so the object of the spiritual part of us is to show off those higher aspects of human nature or reflections of divinity in our own way. All right. So you can, let me stop sharing here. You can take the WEPSS by going to www.wepss.com. It's $15 and takes about, depends on how efficient you are, half hour, 45 minutes. So it's a longer test. They said, well, 200 items, can't you make it shorter? Well, I'm working on that. But actually, the longer it makes the test more reliable. So the more items, the better. Like I could say, look, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Interview this person. Tell me what type you think they are. You say, well, that's not very much time. I say, okay, I'll give you an hour to interview them and then figure out what type they are. You say, well, that's a little bit better. So you got more time. You've got more questions, more possibilities for reflection. So 200 items makes it more reliable. So it takes you maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. You get the results back right away. And you have, they'll never go away. You have kind of lifetime access to it. So thanks for listening. I hope you would find the WEPSS useful. Some people do. And try it out. Okay.